Hello, I'm David Hardesty. In this lecture, we discuss the special rules for transfers of assets to U.S.-owned foreign corporations. The objectives of this lecture are as follows. To understand the difference between transfers in exchange for stock to U.S.-owned domestic corporations versus transfers to U.S.-owned foreign corporations. Understand the special rules for transfers of intangibles. And understand the exceptions for transfers of business assets. Here's the most important difference between transfers to domestic versus foreign corporations. As discussed in the text at 13.02, while a U.S. shareholder can make a tax-free transfer of property to a domestic corporation in exchange for stock, such a transfer to a foreign corporation is ordinarily taxable. In general, U.S. taxpayers that transfer assets to newly formed foreign corporations will recognize gain or loss based on the appraised value of the assets transferred. There are some exceptions to this rule, and there are special rules. These are discussed in the text at 13.02. Most transfers to foreign corporations are immediately taxable, but a special rule applies to transfers of intangibles. As discussed in the text at 13.023, where there is a transfer of an intangible to a U.S.-owned foreign corporation, the transfer may not be immediately taxable, as it is with transfers of other assets. The special provisions for intangibles are important because transfers to new foreign corporations so often involve valuable intangibles, such as patents, trademarks, and copyrighted materials. Under the special rules, instead of the transfer of an intangible being immediately taxed, the transferor is taxed for a period of up to 20 years based on the income produced by the foreign corporation using the intangible. Essentially, the transferor of an intangible is treated as having sold the property to the foreign corporation in exchange for payments that are contingent upon the productivity, use, or disposition of the property, that is, for a royalty. According to the regulations, intangible property subject to Section 367D does not include property described in Section 1221A3, or a working interest in oil and gas property. Section 1221A3 generally refers to property held by a taxpayer whose personal efforts created such property, or held by a taxpayer in whose hands the basis of such property is determined in whole or in part by reference to the basis of such property in the hands of its creator.